Welcome back, 7th grade. Well, I hope you enjoyed our close-up look at one particular echinoderm yesterday when we looked at starfish, both their body structure and their life processes. Today, we are going to stick around in this echinoderm section on page 294. But I want to look at the other kinds of echinoderms. Starfish are not the only echinoderm. There's actually quite a few more. And so we're going to pick out 3 of those and just briefly look at some pictures and some descriptions of them. And then I have something special for you. One of the most interesting things about life science is being able to actually see where these creatures live and what it's like to really go there, especially sea creatures, because that's such an unusual environment. We are not around the sea very much. So a lot of these kind of animals also exist in what are called tide pools. And this is when the tide recedes or goes down, goes out. It exposes some rocky areas on the shoreline. And there are special animals that live there. And so I'm going to show you a video that is done in the state of California by one of their aquariums. I believe it's Monterey Bay Aquarium, where they actually go out and they explore a tide pool. And I really like this video because they really just have a camera and a couple of employees that go out and show you what it's like to really be in a tide pool when the tide's down and checking out some really cool creatures. So we're going to take a look at that. But first, let's take a look at some other kinds of echinoderms. So I'm going to share my screen with you. All right, this should be happening now. Okay, so let's take first a look at something called a sea urchin. This is what a sea urchin looks like. Let me get my little notifications off here. So a sea urchin, what is a sea urchin? Sea urchins are typically spiny. You can see the little spines on that. Globular animals. Globular means they look like little globs or circles or spheres. Echinoderms. They're echinoderms. They're in the class Echinoidea. There's about 950 species that live on the seabed. Now think about it. You're looking at a picture of a sea urchin. But even amongst sea urchin, there's 950 different species. That is a lot of different species. And they inhabit all oceans and depth zones from the intertidal, which is the tidal pools that we're going to look at today on the video, down to 5,000 meters. That's a wide range. Their tests are round and spiny, typically from 3 to 10 centimeters across. Okay, so now let's look at another one that you probably have seen some, and that is this picture right here, actually, a sand dollar. You see these. If you've ever been to the beach, they sell these things. Sometimes people keep them in their bathroom. If they have sort of sea decor in their bathroom or somewhere, you'll see sand dollars. So sand dollars refer to a species of extremely flattened, burrowing sea urchins. These guys can burrow, right? Have you ever picked one up and looked at the underside of these things and the little legs that allow them to move? Some species within the order, not quite as flat, are known as sea biscuits. Sand dollars can also be called sand cakes or cake urchins. So these are fun little guys. There's tons of them. If you ever go to the beach, you're likely to see some. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is called a sea cucumber. Well, that's sort of a funny name. It sort of sounds like food that lives in the ocean. Well, sea cucumbers are echinoderms. This is the section we're in. And they are marine animals with a leathery skin and an elongated body. You can tell it is. It's elongated. It just means long and narrow. It contains a single branched gonad, and sea cucumbers are found on the seafloor worldwide. So, like all of these, the urchin, the sand dollar, the sea cucumber, the starfish, all part of this group called echinoderms. Okay, now let me share with you now this fun video where they actually go out to a tidal zone and explore this tidal pool region and point out some fascinating animals that are there. This will be pretty much the extent of the rest of the lesson. I just want you to get a feel for what it would be like to actually go out to where these things are and check it out for yourself. So again, you'll hear some keywords along the way, adaptations, things like that. Remember, that's from an evolutionary perspective. Unfortunately, if you go to any federal or state park, unfortunately, you're going to get a lot of that evolutionary perspective. So just, be aware when you hear words like adaptation, because we know that these creatures were created to be able to survive in these particular environments. And that's a testimony to the creativity and the power of God. So with that, let's take a look.
All righty. Well, hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Monterey Bay Aquarium here live on YouTube. But as you can see, we're not at the aquarium right now. We are out in the wild. We are in our really good friend Daniel's office right here. We are at Point Lobos State Natural Reserve. My name is Patrick. This is Daniel with California State Parks. How's it going, Daniel?
Going great. Good to have you out here today at Point Lobos. We've got a low tide happening right now. So we're going to take a look at the low tide today and some of the critters here and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And we've got a bored Acratosaurus that is currently first here on the stream. Welcome. Thank you so much for being there. Yeah, we are in the office right now in this extreme land between the ocean and the dry land up here. We are in the tide pools where we have extreme animals adapted to life between the tides. We're going to go walk around, see what we can find. We've also got a mounting swell here, which should be a lot of fun. So I'm going to flip this camera around real quick, and maybe we should talk very quickly, Daniel. We are in an extreme environment. The ocean is no joke. Let's talk about some tide pool etiquette right now. How do we explore the tide pool safely?
All right. Well, safety is the key. Tide pooling with a buddy is really a big part of it. So at least one of you is keeping an eye on that ocean.
On the ocean right out there, yeah.
Because as Patrick was saying, swells come up, they take you by surprise, and the next thing you know, you can have wet feet or even worse.
Right.
So, yeah,
we had a tripod mounted over here for an Instagram live we were doing for the aquarium just a moment ago, and it didn't have a buddy. It wasn't watching where the ocean was coming from, so we got a wet phone from that.
Yeah. And another thing is watch where you step.
Yes.
When you are out in the tide pools, you want to minimize the impact. Think of yourself as a guest.
Right.
In these tide pools, critters' homes. So watch where you step, and I like to get down low. I mean, that's really the best way. That's where all the action is looking closely, not way up here, but down lower. So when you get low, you minimize the space to fall if you happen to slip and fall, and you're going to see a lot more.
Right. So just like if you're in the tide pools or at the club, getting low is one of those moves that you do want to do. And in particular out here, you want to take your time. You want to take it very slow because there are animals absolutely everywhere adapted to every square inch here of the rock. And very quickly, we should point out that tide pools are set up in zones where you have the high intertidal, which you can kind of see right here. There's our staff photographer, Tyson, right there, if you enjoy the photos at the aquarium. So we have here the high intertidal. Up here, you're going to see little periwinkles. You're going to see some barnacles that are really, these are extreme animals. They're out of the water most of the time, and they are making it work with the sea spray and the highest of the high tides. Wow. But then we have the mid intertidal, which is, Daniel, where we find ourselves right now, is the mid zone.
A lot more diversity of animals here, but we see that the mid-tide zone, it tends to be hard-shelled animals that can withstand being out of the water for a little bit. And if you're a softie, like this anemone,
and snake, the blood god. I love, by the way, all of these names here. Snake, the blood god. Yeah, we are going to try to do some more live streaming here on YouTube. So definitely stick around. We're also on Periscope and Facebook Live. But yeah, on YouTube, we are going to be bringing you more of the cool stuff. And really, we want to come out and show you what we have here in the wild, just next to the aquarium, because Point Lobos State Natural Reserve is just a few miles away from the aquarium. And you can see what we have inside the aquarium out here in the wild. The last zone we had to mention very quickly, Daniel, right out here, this zone, that's the low intertidal, and that's a pretty exciting spot.
It is. It's generally covered by water and only exposed at the extreme low tides.
Right.
So it's a treat to get to see what's under there.
Yeah.
We have a mixture of a lot of things that lives just right there.
Right. And so let's head down over here where we can see, it appears that our anemone friends that we were going to talk about is closing up right now. So here we have a giant green anemone that you can see that bright green on its tentacles.
Super
It's fluorescing, but it seems like it is deciding, hey, you know what? I'm going to cut my losses, been out of the water for a little bit. Maybe it's time to close up like the rest of its anemone friends. And of course, reason you tend to see a lot of anemones next to each other in the tide pools is you have to keep your friends close and your anemones closer. So, so besides that, they're also clonal. These particular ones over here are aggregating anemones. These ones aren't clonal. They're the very, very large ones, but we do have all in here, tons and tons. Hey, hello, Ashley. Thanks for being there. We have so many anemones in here, and these will actually clone themselves and reproduce that way. But here, Daniel, let's talk maybe a little bit about these mussels and the barnacles, because we have this constant stream of water that has come out from here and going straight out, back out to sea. So who do we have here in this little channel?
Yeah, pretty cool to see all this, isn't it? We've got the California mussel right here.
California mussel. Yeah. Delicious. Cannot collect them here.
Nope. But they are served in local restaurants, and there are areas to collect, but not at Point Lobos or state parks.
Right.
And then we've got our barnacles right here, the leaf barnacle.
Yeah. And so these animals are adapted to sort of this open area where you've got the waves that are going to come in and crash and wash over them. And we should also point out, Daniel, maybe fun fact of the day about barnacles. So this is an animal right here. If you have ever eaten barnacle, maybe in the Mediterranean, cooked in a white wine sauce or something, you're eating actually the foot of these barnacles here. But leaf barnacles, they eat in a very special way, Daniel. How do barnacles grab a meal?
They sure do. They actually eat with their feet. So when the water rushes over them, they can open up and grab what they need to eat and filter it, basically.
There you go. So for you folks out there, if you're looking for a new way to eat out there, if you want to eat like an ocean animal, maybe try like a barnacle. Kick your legs out. Grab a slice of pizza next time.
Yeah, and see how it goes.
There you go.
It works for these guys.
It does, absolutely. Now, a few other animals we should point out that we have here. We've got some chitons.
Oh, we sure
now,
do.
I don't know if you can see, but we've got numerous chitons right here in front of me. And I don't know, YouTube, if you can see the chitons right now, but we're about to blow your mind with all of the chitons that we have around. So let's go. Let's see the chitons.
Got one right here. You know, the key is these shells right here. It's the back of the chiton, and there's 8 of them.
There you
go. You know, and that really is the clue that that's the chiton, and this shape here. This particular chiton, called the mossy chiton, has got this mossy, kind of texture around its, margins right here.
Yeah, and once you see one chiton, you're going to start seeing more. There's one right underneath Daniel right here. There's another chiton.
And right here, too.
Hanging out. And another one right up there. We've got chitons galore as we go down into these tide pools.
Grazers. They're going along and grazing.
Saw one here earlier. It's back up in there.
Under that ledge, we've got a special guest. Who do we have? We have got a crab. Look at that.
Oh, I'm not seeing it maybe from your angle.
Yeah, right.
There's our crabby boy. There it is right there.
Camera shy.
Yeah, so we have back in there a crab. That is a purple line shore crab.
All right.
Hanging out back in there saying hello. You can kind of see the claws right in full view. So we didn't even, there's the other chiton I wanted to show everyone.
Oh,
there it is right there. Once you see the chiton. Yeah, it is Mr. Crab. So that's where the Krabby Patty is hanging out over there.
That's right.
My name's Patrick, so that works out perfectly. This actually isn't the Krabby Patty, Daniel. This is Patrick.
Yeah.
That's the joke. I've seen the SpongeBob memes, everyone.
All right.
We're going to try that one on for size. You're welcome, YouTube. So, Yeah, we've got more chitons hanging out in there. And so these animals, these are animals that are, again, they're grazers. They're not super active right now. They'll be more active when they're covered up and also by night. Yes. Daniel, I did want to point out, you are absolutely covered in flies right now, as am I. Yes. So for those of you folks out there thinking that this is an easy job here in the intertidal, can't have too many creepy, crawly, squirm reflexes. We're just covered in flies. What's going on with these flies here?
Well, these are kelp flies, and they'll help decompose the kelp, which is what's bringing them in. But they're a food source for the birds, really. Residents and migratory birds will chop these up. Yes.
So these kelp flies are very seasonal, and right now there's a lot of them. And as the birds are flying back down, they'll come and grab them. Had a question just then. Are there sponges in the bay? Yes, there are sponges in the bay. We might even find some here in just a little bit. Here, one last thing, since we're here. I mean, there's just so much to talk about the whole time. We have an owl hanging out right there. So what's going on? That is not a rock. That is an animal. What's going on with this
an animal on the rock. It's got this hard shell, and it's also a grazer too. It'll go along grazing the algae. Looks like it's doing a really good job. Yeah. There's no algae right there on the rock. And what I have heard is that they have homing spots where some limpets end up back in their general area. That's their home. So they'll go off and graze and then come back.
Exactly right. They have a home scar that they'll come back to every night. And what they're also doing is they're clearing this area out to keep barnacles and other animals from even living in there. So these animals are fiercely defending that farm. And so the genus of this particular owl limpet is Laudia, and that is called a Laudia farm.
I love it.
Around there. So it's basically, it is farming. It's keeping its area clear so that diatoms and algae can grow there. They can grab a meal. So that's your Laudia farm hanging out.
Super cool.
And yeah, Daniel, we just heard the waves coming up a little bit. So
turn around.
Here's a nice big wave. I think we're good where we are. But we should get to see that wave. Oh, there it is right there.
Nice.
Breaking on down. Okay, let's go take a look at the, hold on.
It opened up again.
Look, our buddy is back. So we do have a crab shell hanging out in there.
Looks interesting.
How are animals able to survive in the tide pools? Doesn't it evaporate fast, and doesn't the salinity change? Yes, it is very hard to live in the intertidal. This is an extreme environment. So what are some adaptations these animals have?
What we're seeing is, survival of the fittest right here. These animals that can live long enough to reproduce, and hard shells, keep the animal on the inside safe. Closing up, when the water's out, like the anemone, that's another one. Moving, being able to move. We have fish that live in the tide pool.
Right.
They're going to have to be able to move so they don't end up in a pool that gets dried out or gets overly, salty.
Right. No, that's exactly right. There are fish that live in these tide pools, and they have to know where to hop to be able to find their way into new tide pools. There are actually species of fish where they create a mental map. Hard to believe, but they create a mental map of where they can hop to from tide pool to tide pool. And when the tide goes out, they'll find a new spot that's maybe a little bit better. And so not to worry, our crab friend is still back up under there. This is from an earlier meal.
Yes.
There's that little crab shell. Question that we had, though, as we maybe walk over to another tide pool, Daniel, is, flip this cat around, is where are the sea stars? How come we are not seeing any starfish right now?
Yeah, well, the sea stars have had a rough couple of years. They've had the wasting syndrome, which, Patrick, you might know a little bit more. Was it a bacterial thing that got into the water?
It was thought to be a viral thing that then caused the bacterial infection. The mechanism is still out there, but it was a virus that somehow got really activated for the sea stars. And so let me flip this camera back around. So as you can see, we are in an absolutely gorgeous spot right here. We've basically got an infinity tide pool here going out into the ocean. But yeah, no sea stars. Normally we would have sea stars all up in here munching on these mussels, but that is not the case at the moment.
That would help keep things in balance a little bit more.
Right, now, so that's where the sea stars are. Now here, we should point out, we've got a couple of anemones that are hanging out.
Yeah, look at that.
Delightful.
Next to the urchins.
Those spiky animals. Now the urchins in here are largely going to be feeding on algae that gets washed up to them. So we have here a nice purple urchin. We have another chitin hanging out there. And Daniel is my buddy right now watching the ocean.
You're cool for the moment.
We have the wild Pacific right here.
We are on the edge of the world right here.
And we should point out that we do have a really cool alga here called, this is Dead Man's Fingers right here. Delightful.
Yeah, super cool.
And this particular alga is actually one cell. Multiple nuclei, but no cell walls between them, so that you could actually unravel this whole thing and get one single cell right there for the dead man's fingers there. And then we have Egregia, feather boa kelp.
Yeah, which can grow, what, to 15, 20 feet or so?
Yeah, it can form a canopy
Yeah,
itself. Yeah.
It's one of our giant kelps here.
Yeah, and in here we've got a couple of other species of kelp hanging out down there. We got some southern sea palm, it seems like.
Very cool.
Yeah. Oh, I'm hearing the water rush back out, so maybe we'll have another wave come up in here. So that we're now in the low intertidal. So watch this wave as it comes up. Oh, not too high this time, but it'll
fake this out.
Yeah, it'll wash in here, replenish the oxygen, replenish the cool water in here, and that allows a lot of these animals to grow and also to survive in an area that is just a little bit wetter. So you can really see the gradient from low all the way up to mid up there.
Yeah, and then with the high tide, this will be under the water.
Yeah.
It would not be standing here.
And so, Daniel, we have a quick question. What is your favorite part of a tide pool? What do you like so much about the tide pools?
I like the mystery of the tide pools, the not knowing what you're going to see, the surprise of that nudibranch or tide pool octopus or whatever it may be. You know?
Woo!
Yeah, there's a lot of drama and action going on in the tide pools. You got to stop and really focus in and watch it. And I like that part of it too. It slows everything down, but there's so much going on.
And here comes a little bit of that water flow here. We might be seeing another few set waves here come in just a little bit. So again, this intertidal zone, you can see all the way back here. It's a land between the ocean and the land. It's this zone where lots of extreme animals are living, and you know, you wouldn't think of mussels as being extreme animals or barnacles or anemones, but they're living in a zone that is incredibly difficult. It's hot, it's cold, it's dry, it's wet, it's dark, it's bright, and they're making it work. And oh, where's the kelp forest kelp, Daniel?
All right.
Can we see a kelp forest from here?
In fact, it's right out there. In fact, there's a big patch of kelp right out there.
And there's a sea otter.
Sea otter in it.
See if I can zoom in on the otter.
Yeah.
There's the otter right there. Hello.
Very famous for its kelp forest.
Yeah, and the kelp forests out there have those otters in them.
Yeah.
So just beyond here, you can see that kelp is right there. And so
Super cool.
Yeah, you've got the algae here in the low intertidal, the subtidal, that then becomes a big forest out there where the otters live. Truly, some of the most productive marine ecosystems on the planet are here in this cold water, and the tide pools are filled with life, and the kelp forest right out there, also absolutely stunning. We have here in front of us also some birds that are hanging out. Those look to be loons to me, or some cormorants. Oh, cormorants right there, just diving down. Couldn't see them very well.
They do have a loon-like, you know, profile.
There were a few loons off the aquarium back then. I just wanted it to be a loon, but that turns me into the loon by not recognizing the cormorant. Well, hey everyone, we've been walking around the intertidal here for about 17 minutes. We've seen some cool stuff from anemones to purple-eyed short crabs. We've got some laminaria, seychellii, giant kelp hanging out. We got otters out there. I'm gonna dead man's fingers, you name it. I'm gonna flip this back around real quick.
Right.
And just want to say thank you so much for following us here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium on YouTube. Thanks for coming tide pooling with California State Parks here at Point Lobos State Natural Reserve.
All right, guys. Well, that was, I thought, very interesting, because I like to see what it would be like if I could actually go out myself and find where some of these echinoderms are, or they live in these tide pool areas. And so, you know, apart from going yourself, that's as good as it gets to actually just have it on video, going out, see what does this look like, where do they live, how do they live. So I hope you found that interesting. All right, guys, well, that's it for today. Don't forget to take a look at Google Classroom. Make sure you're caught up on your exit slips and everything you need to do. And I will talk to you guys later.